Welcome back to the Sports Business Take Podcast, your home for sports industry news with a little personality. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore, and today we are joined by a very special guest, Jonny Lazarus. He is a color commentator for UMass Hockey and a show host and analyst at dailyfaceoff.com, as well as having worked in the NHL. Jonny, would you care to explain some of your various roles to our viewers and kind of what you do?
How much time you got, boys? I've been trying to work on the elevator pitch, but Paul, Zach, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Enjoying a nice little glass of vino on the off night tonight, a little steak and green beans, mushrooms. Trying to enjoy myself here, but my role right now, I'm still trying to figure out, to be honest. I'm a freelancer. I guess with the NHL, I do a lot of different things like content with Bleacher Report, color commentary for Nesson and Hockey East, like you mentioned. I host and write for the Daily Faceoff, write for VSiN, and also appear on shows for them, which is a sports gambling company out in Vegas. So, have my hands and toes dipped in a ton of different pools, I guess would be a saying. But it's been a dream so far. So, happy to be here.
Yeah, my first question is, what made you passionate about color commentating? I think that's a really cool part. I've gotten to do some myself recently. I've done play-by-play broadcasts for our baseball team here at St. Joe's a few times. And I want to know, what's your why? Like, why did you get into broadcasting in the first place?
Well, so I'm very lucky. So my best friend, Steve, who was the director of hockey ops, currently director of hockey ops at UMass, reached out to me that they needed someone to just kind of fill in for a game. And he just asked me if I'd be interested in doing it. It was something I had never really thought that I would do, to be honest. And after one game, I was like, wow, looking back at it, I wasn't very good. But I was always comfortable talking the game, so it was fun for me. And it was something I wanted to get good at. And since then, I've worked with a broadcasting coach, Joe Montgomery, who has been so helpful to me over the last 2 years. It's just like practice. We watch film, kind of go over little critiques and things I can do better, what I can do differently, how I can describe plays better, how I can bring in outside knowledge to the game, all that kind of stuff. So I've loved it right from the start. It's not something that I seeked out and wanted to do, to be honest. It kind of fell in my lap of some sort. But since my first game, I was like, wow, this is so much fun. It's something I would love to continue to try to do. So there's no I didn't seek out to do it, I wish there was a better story, but since I got the opportunity, it's been awesome. So it's something that I hope to continue and and will be continuing, as my career progresses. But there's no I always loved the media side of the game though. So I will say that that was something I loved growing up, watching Ranger games, listening to Sam Rose and Joe Micheletti, John Davidson, Stan Fischler, MSG, Kenny Albert, Dave Maloney, Don LaGreca. New York, you're spoiled with all the talent on air. And, I always was fascinated with how well people can bring fans into the game. And that's, I guess, what the why would be.
Yeah, Zach, you're from Connecticut, close to New York. You could speak to some of that New York talent for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are blessed where we're from, and love the passion, love what you're talking about. It is really just being able to be put in a place where you have an opportunity and say, can I seize this? Can I find joy in it? And be able to run with it. Which is something that we preach and talk about a lot on this podcast. Kind of something interesting I thought of when I looked at your profile and where you've worked and what you're doing right now. Working on teams you're a fan of, which is one of the most interesting phrases and one of the most interesting conversations, right? People in the sports management world, from what my experience, highly suggest not doing so or not reporting on teams you're passionate about, right? You, from what I understand, being a Rangers fan, part of my question is, are you a Rangers fan?
Yeah.
But with two of your current roles having the New York Rangers involved, how do you take and what do you think of this piece of advice that is talked about in the sports and management world?
I mean, this is a tough one to answer, to be honest. Because I think I'm a little different. I got this role because of my fandom. So I don't know if I'm not going to say your college,
which is very atypical,
advice, but I think there's a way to go about it. I think for me, maybe I'm a little different in that I played the game. So my fandom wasn't like, this guy sucks, that guy sucks, screw the Penguins, screw the Islanders. It was more so here's what happened on this play. Like, this is what I think they could have done better. And that's one area where I try to focus on. Like, I hate bashing players. Like, it's something that I've actually had to work on, because there's times you kind of need to do it. But as someone who played the game and couldn't advance past the college level, I was like, who the hell am I to say this guy sucks? You know, like, so my approach is a little bit different, but because I was a fan, I actually feel very strongly that you shouldn't lose your fandom, and that's something that I'm sure is passed down in school. And listen, there are times where people have told me, hey, like, on certain plays, you don't have to scream. You know, not that I'm screaming, but, like, you know, it's hard to hide the emotion at times. But I don't think it has to be so black and white. Like, you look at, you know, guys like Stephen A. Smith, like, he shows fandom at times, right? Like, and he's probably the biggest sports personality out there. You know, one of my favorite guys, Alan Hahn, big Knicks fan, big Islanders fan. He talks about it. And I think that's what makes us human. You know, like, are there times where, you know, I'll be a little more critical on the Rangers? Yeah. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, you know, like, I can't always be like, oh, yay. But it depends on what you're doing too. Like, I guess, for example, when I'm doing a college game, obviously I have a little bit of a, you know, more of a home feel to UMass, but when I'm doing a Nesson game, it has to be neutral. So in those settings, you got to take the fan hat off. But when you can be a fan, I think it's okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong guy to ask about that one, because you know, I didn't go to sports business management school. I was in communications. So, like, these lessons, I didn't know any better. But I guess everyone's path is different, right?
I mean, but being an on-air personality, you almost have to have that passion. So being a fan, I can see how it would enhance maybe your fire for it, and the way you prepare for it and all of that. So that is one of the things I wanted to ask you is, how do you prepare to do a show when you go on air, for the Daily Faceoff or the NHL on YouTube or wherever you're on air?
Well, the preparation is different for everything. You know, if you're doing color commentary, it's a lot of studying individual players. Not that you don't do that for when you're hosting shows, but I think that's more like thinking on the spot, because you don't know how the game is going to play out. Whereas when you're doing a show, you prepare with a lineup, you know exactly the topics you're going to touch on. And if conversations steer in a different way, that's fine. That's organic, but you kind of know what's coming next as far as the conversation goes. So the preparation there is just kind of knowing each topic a little bit more. Whereas the color commentary, it's like, you go into a game, you better know all your facts, because this guy's going to do something, that guy's going to do something. Every play is different, and you've got to be able to think on your feet. Not saying you don't do that when you're hosting, but you know, with my morning show, it's a lot of late night texting. Last night I was up till 2 a.m. watching hockey. You know, it's kind of what you do every night. You just watch hockey throughout the entire night. And it's just texting co-hosts, texting producers, coming up with what's the trendiest topic, what's the sexiest topic from that night to go into tomorrow morning. And, you know, at times I think for that, it's almost better to not be over prepared and kind of let yourself react organically. But it's so different. But I do think, though, what separates most people in the industry, no matter what you're doing, is being prepared. And the people you're talking to have a lot of respect when they know you prepared and did your homework. So that's something too, but it's all so different. The situations, you know, are very different, but preparation is everything.
Yeah, I love that. Preparation is everything, especially in the broadcasting. I've only done a couple of broadcasts myself, but when I have done it, I've found that the more prepared I am, the better I sound on air. So it definitely translates. And I think more than just on air, even off air and anything you do in your work, the more you prepare, the more you know, the better you're going to be at it, right? So I think that makes total sense.
Yeah,
Always.
Agreed. Especially when you're doing that multifaceted too, right? Looking at your profile on LinkedIn, you have 2, 3, 4 roles that you're fulfilling. You were talking about at the beginning, doing kind of some freelance work, and you're bouncing between these different places all the time. Being prepared in every moment is so key to that. Kind of continuing on that topic, right? In our modern world, it's often said you need 2, 3, or 4 sources of income to succeed, right? Which is kind of crazy when you're thinking about 50 years ago, one job, you get the house, you get the wife, and you build, right? As someone with a diverse portfolio of roles, what is your take on the above thoughts? How do you manage your roles, and how do you manage work-life balance and time?
Well, I'm very far from the housewife and kids thing, so
That's not a bad thing.
I'm pretty much a square one when it comes to that. But I think it's tough at times, and I think sometimes you have to put things on pause. Like for me, full transparency, I've put dating on a complete pause right now. Like it's just something that when you have the time, it's great to pursue it and be all in on it, and when you don't have the time, like the last thing you want to do is work all day and then have to put effort into your dating life and all that stuff too. So it's kind of hard to be all in every area, and your social life takes a hit too. Like my friends ask me, you got a game this weekend? And I'm like, yep, see you in 2 weeks. It's just kind of like how it goes. But, again, like a night like tonight, I get to be in my apartment. I enjoy a nice glass of wine from time to time, and this makes me happy. So, I think just learning what to prioritize is a big part of that. And if you really want it, you're going to be willing to sacrifice those things. Like, when I was first starting, I was up until August, I was working a 9-to-5 job in ad sales, and I was in the office 2 days a week. I would go to the office, I would come home, I would do a podcast, I would edit the podcast, I would create content, and I'd be up till like midnight doing all the extra stuff. My friends would want to hang out, and I'd say, no, I can't. I got this shit to do. And not everyone's willing to do that. And I think that's also what separates a lot of successful people and a lot of people who just have the talent and, aren't willing to do that. So for me, like balance, and I struggle with it. I have not figured it out. I don't think you ever really have it figured out, to be honest. Like it's always something that is a day-to-day thing that you deal with, right? So there's no perfect answer for that question. It's really just learning what to prioritize and what's most important to you and what makes you the happiest, and as you get older, that happiness and that idea of fun changes. Like when I was younger, my idea of fun was going out on Friday night, going out on Saturday afternoon, and feeling like shit on Sunday and kind of dealing with the punches. But that's just not the case when you turn 28 years old. My idea of fun now is kind of like going out for a nice dinner, having a couple glasses of wine, being in bed by 11:30 and attacking the next day. Like it's just kind of, part of growing up. So, and it's weird. Like I would hate myself if I said that 5 years ago, but it's just how it is. So there's always different ways to figure it out. And, everyone's different. Everyone figures it out at a different time.
Yeah. I mean, having those priorities is super important working in sports, but when you're so passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't even really matter,
It's
right?
more fun than anything.
Right. You're living out your dream through your work. So I think that's really a big piece of when we talk about life balance, like that is what you want to do with your life. And I think that's very commendable. So talking about one of your other different roles, I want to get into your podcast a little bit. So we obviously run a podcast too. So like, what would be your advice for young podcasters, up and comers looking to get their stuff out there a little more, or maybe make the best content that they can? Because I know you do content for BR as well as all of your other roles.
I would say just like, and I'm sure everyone says this, but being organic is the best thing, and posting a lot of social clips is the best thing. Like show your face, show your voice, let it be heard, let people understand who you are, what you sound like, and how to relate to you. If there's one thing I've done in my career that's helped me out is just posting my clips, and if people agree with it, that's great. If they don't, honestly, sometimes it's even better because people love to get fired up and call me an idiot. And it's just something that you got to embrace. You're not going to please everybody, and you can't be afraid to sound dumb. Like the biggest thing I was doing when I first started was like, oh, I got to really sound like I know what I'm talking about when I bring this topic up. And it's like, if you don't know what you're talking about, just be honest about it. Like, don't be afraid to be wrong, And I think that's something that when most people are starting, they're afraid of, because it's like, oh, I don't want to embarrass myself on there. But like, people do it. People get embarrassed. Yeah. It's normal. It's human. Like, how many times
nobody knows everything, right?
Yeah. Like, but you got to learn how to have thick skin if you're going to do it.
Right.
And trust me, there is a lot of negativity. I read a lot of comments, and there are nights where I'm like, oh man, like, do I suck at this? Like,
yeah,
it's a lot of internal battling and I guess self-talk, but that's just a part of going through it too, right? You have to develop that thick skin, because it's the first time, I mean, it happened like a year ago. Someone randomly like tweeted that Jonny Lazarus guy is so insufferable. And I was like, whoa, Like I sent to my friends and they're like, dude, that's actually sick that someone
Oh,
is listening to you enough to like tweet about you. And I was like,
yeah, that is cool.
yes. I mean, that sucks that he said that, but like, I guess, you know,
I've had a similar moment like that when we first started. One of our first TikToks, somebody commented. They said it was like my 20th birthday or something, and they said like 20 going on 60.
oh damn.
I was like, damn. But do you think like those negative comments and feedback about the way that you, not only the way that you talk, but the way that you give your takes, do you think that helps you improve? Do you take anything from that, or do you really work with your coach, like you had mentioned earlier, on that stuff and kind of ignore the outside noise?
I think it's a mix. Like, I think it's good to actually understand what your critics are saying. You know, if it's something that's repetitive, you should work on fixing it, right? Like, you don't want to, if there's something that continues to get negative feedback, you don't want to have that happen constantly. One of my problems, but I also think to me it's a benefit. Like I try to read everything and I try to respond to everyone. Like I think that's something that's helped me out a lot too. Like whether you have 4 followers or 4 million followers, I'm going to reply the same way. And I think that's just something that's like who I am. I don't know if it's something I recommend to everybody, but I think people, you know, why do you post on social media in general? Because you want a reaction from somebody. Nobody posts on social media that doesn't want any sort of attention, right? Like that's what it's for. And, you know, I think it's good to ignore the haters at times, depending on who they are, but also just like level with them, you know, like, you know, how many times someone's talked shit about me and I'm like, you know what, man, you're actually kind of right about this. And they're like, oh, damn. Sorry, dude. You know, like it's just people are just, I don't know. People just want a reaction and that's all it really is.
Yeah, I totally get that. Zach, you wanna respond to that?
Well said and totally agree. Kind of shifting throughout the last year, we've talked about the NHL as an innovator among the sports leagues. They've done a couple really interesting projects that we've talked a bit on. Nothing in particular for me to point out, but we've described them as an innovator in American sport. As someone who works closely with the NHL, with that league, what innovations to the sport are you most excited for, whether it be playing, viewership, in-person interactions, media, consumption, AI type stuff, anything you have in that innovation department that you might be excited about?
Well, Zach, they can innovate your Wi-Fi. Damn, dude.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Struggling over there.
Trust, it's not our fault, man. If we could fix it, we would.
Yeah. Are you guys in the same place right now?
No, but we're at the same college.
Got it.
Yeah,
that Wi-Fi. Oh, there you go. You're a little clearer now. I don't know if it just magically hurt us.
He's in his dorm. I'm in the student center.
That makes sense. To me, I think we're in a great age for the NHL right now. It's grown so much just over the last 3 years, and I think a lot of it has to do with the players being open to showing more of themselves. And, you know, I think the way you innovate is through the acceptance of putting yourself out there. And a lot of athletes in other sports have done that. And I think it's just now kind of gravitating toward the NHL.
That's so crucial for social media.
It's not necessarily something that they have to do. It's really kind of a mindset of the players. You know, I think you look now and the conversations are starting to happen, but I'm pretty sure Mookie Betts has his own podcast. I know the Kelsey brothers have their own podcast, and I know a ton of NBA players have their own podcast. There's no current NHL player that has his own. And I think there's just always been a fear in hockey of putting yourself out there, but the younger players now are starting to do it. Like a lot of the older guys I've talked to, they tell me their rookie years to their first 2-3 years in the NHL, they wouldn't even speak in the locker room. Like they were so afraid of the veterans and older guys and whatnot that it took them a while to open up. You know what I mean? Like the younger kids now, they come in and they make $8 million off the bat and they're key contributors to their teams. And they're just more comfortable just from their on ice performance, where years ago, it wasn't always like that. So I think you can talk about AI and you can talk about ideas and all these different things with technology and social media, but it's really on the personalities of the players to help grow this thing and make it better.
Yeah, and that's so crucial in social media, right? If you don't have buy-in from the people that you're displaying, then none of it really works. And the best types of social content are the ones that are the behind the scenes of the players' personalities. And those are the ones that most people engage with too. Those are the ones that get the most views, the most likes. So that's really crucial to success in a social media department. So thank you for speaking to that. So I know you have to get out of here soon, so I'll just ask you our closing question. We ask the same question to all of our guests. So you work in sports, so is everyone else that we have on. If you could go back to one event or moment in sports history and work or broadcast, for you it would probably be broadcasting. If you could broadcast one moment or event in sports history, which one would it be and why?
Would I have to be alive or no?
Yes.
Ooh,
well, actually, it doesn't have to be in your lifetime.
Okay.
But you would be.
I would be alive in that time.
Yeah, in that scenario. Yeah.
I think to me, it would be, and this is probably so basic, but like the 1980 USA Russia Miracle game.
That's a really good one.
I mean, I think that's really like, has no one said that before? I feel like that's so basic.
Well, I don't think we've had a hockey guest on
really?
yet, so I think you are our first.
Well, I think just you could talk about Rangers and teams, but when you have a moment that is so significant for a country and like kind of creating USA hockey essentially, I think that's something that is just that lives on forever.
Yeah.
So I think being there, and I know people who were there as like little kids and whatnot, to unify a country and not to get so like cheesy, I think that's something in sports, right? Like that's something that is very rare and unique. And the US, I don't know if they've won a gold at the Olympics since, but I think that would be one where that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super crucial, is having those moments to bring a country together, like you were talking about. But really, that's what sports are meant for, right? That's what sports are meant for, bringing communities together. And I think that's a really good place to leave it off. I know you have to head out of here, and I'm sorry about Zach's
I got time for like 5 more minutes if you got anything else.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, cool. All right, so then my last question to you is going to be what is one thing that most people don't know about being an on-air personality?
Whoa. What are some answers you've gotten in the past?
We haven't had somebody who's been a talk show host before, so that's why I wanted to ask.
New horizons.
People see like your stuff on social media, but what goes on? Let's phrase it a different way. What goes on behind the scenes that you could explain about the process that is maybe different than people would think it would be?
I guess one funny thing would be, I know a lot of people that do it too. Like broadcasters, if you like text them or whatever during a game, like they're going to answer you. Like they're on their phones. They see their phones. Like I think that's kind of funny.
Oh, really?
Like I remember Kenny Albert, who's been like such a mentor to me and just a great, like close friend now, I'd call him. He was texting me during a broadcast once. I think it was like Vegas versus San Jose, because I had played with Mario Ferraro at UMass and Ferraro was on the ice. And he texted me like during the game, "Did you play with Ferraro?" And I was like, "Why are you texting me? Like I'm listening to you on TV." And I thought that was pretty funny. And I don't know if Kenny would want me saying that. Like I don't think it's we texted, like it's just funny the first time it happened to me, I was like, whoa, like you kind of think that phones are off, everything is just so locked in, but sometimes you need to like go to your phone and like just get a quick little nugget on somebody,
Yeah,
and
right.
I think that's, to me, that was just so funny that like that's probably not a good answer.
That is an interesting part of broadcasting. In the few that I've done, I know like I'm super multitasking, so I can totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I usually have like my computer screen with stats in front of me, 2 pages of notes that I've taken, and then I'm running the score bug on the video monitor, and then I'm announcing, like I'm talking while I'm doing that, so I can totally understand needing to get more information while you're trying to call something, or needing to look something up real quick. So that totally makes sense for play-by-play broadcasting. So thank you, Jonny Lazarus.
Bad answer though. I feel like I didn't.
No, that was perfect. It's good. Trust. Thank you for coming on today. And do you want to shout out your podcast real quick? Yeah,
I would love to shout out the Morning Cup of Hockey. It's a daily NHL show on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel every Monday to Thursday, 9 to 10 a.m. And it's very interactive. We have a whole live chat going on, and we take questions live. And we actually talk a lot of shit to our listeners sometimes live when they do us bad takes. So it's a lot of fun, great community. And Paul, thank you. Thanks, Zach, for me, because I don't know if you can hear me or not. But yeah, you guys are great. And let me know about UMass. I'd be happy to help you out.
I will, absolutely. I will probably see you on campus in the fall.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Have a good night.
Thank you guys. You too.